The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program. Thanks for tuning in again this week. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, joining you live from Dallas, Texas, which is home base for me. If you don't know me yet, I'm a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, organizational logotherapist, inspirational speaker, social scientist, and author. You can learn more about me and how we can work together at elisecortez.com or gusto-now.com. Let me thank my partner and sponsor, WorkProud. We are a perfect collaboration. Everyone wants to know they matter and that the work they do is meaningful and appreciated. WorkProud is a mobile platform built to encourage employees to share stories and recognize each other's contribution. WorkProud empowers HR and business leaders to help create company cultures where all employees are inspired to feel proud of their work and proud of their company. Learn more at workproud.com. With us today is Joyce Tom, a speaker, executive coach, and catalyst for change in the fields of resilience, wellness, and conscious leadership. In Silicon Valley, she has led business and product innovations at Intuit, eBay, SRI International, and was CEO of a database infrastructure startup. After seeing the impacts of stress and high-pressure environments, she founded Energy at Work Co. in 2002 to help executives and entrepreneurs accelerate their growth by bringing more balance and satisfaction to their lives. We'll be talking about the mindsets that are necessary toward purposeful living and working and their relationship to purpose, tools for the journey, and overcoming obstacles. She joins us today from the San Francisco area. Joyce, welcome to Working on Purpose.
Hi, Elise. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you and your audience today.
It is so great. And, when we first were introduced, I was like, oh my gosh, we're two peas in a pod. We're so like-minded. So, but you, of course, like every single one of us on the planet, you have your own very unique niche and view on the matter that we're going to talk about today. And so I think first we have to talk a little bit about, as I introduced you, just where this work came from. So you spent, 20 some years in the Silicon Valley area and learned a few things along the way that pointed you to this work. So situate for us, why this work, why now?
Sure. Well, I had a background in the corporate arena, and my focus was on helping to facilitate change in organizations. And that was great. And as I saw those changes evolve, I saw the toll that it took on people and organizations. And personally, I was doing a lot of other work on myself, with meditation, with somatic practices, with emotional intelligence work. And I thought, well, how can I be of the most service? So after a career in Silicon Valley, I decided I'm going to step away and start to offer other things that that might be helpful to all the people who are involved in innovation and technology and growth, to help make it easier for them, because I think that there's so many people who are inspired to make contributions in the world, and when they meet the challenges that inevitably happen, they want to be able to move along their journey easier, in a more easy way, in a more fluid way, in a more fulfilling way. And so that's what I decided to do with Energy at Work, was to help people in that in their endeavors.
That's so great. And as we spoke about before when we were first getting acquainted on the phone, I've just really come to see, my perspective is that everything is energy. And so it's just really, how do we mobilize that energy? How do we use it most productively? And certainly, as we care about, toward our purpose. And so for this first segment, I know we wanted to focus on journey and destination mindsets and their relationship to purpose. And so maybe we could start, you gave me an article, I read most of it, by the way, but not all the paper, but most of it, and about the Stanford's research. And so I wanted to first start with, how does Stanford's research help us refine our strategy for working on purpose? Your perspective on that.
Sure. Let me step back and give a little bit of context for that. And that is that people are often interested in change, and change is great, but it's about when that change becomes sustainable, when it's lasting, and then that change turns to meaningful growth for people and organizations. And that's one of my main interests. And so what Stanford did was it looked at different things that happened with people when they accomplished goals. And they found out that people often, when they accomplish goals, they pause, they pat themselves on the back, and then they may or may not, they may turn their attention to something else and not continue that progress. In fact, they may backslide. And so before we get into their exact research, I want to just bring up this analogy of a sprint and a marathon. So, you know, in today's society and in business, success is often linked to short-term metrics that encourage us to go full out. You know, just they're always saying, oh, you know, 120%, 120%. And I know that when I was starting out in the corporate world, way back when as a strategic management consultant, I was definitely on that path of like, oh, okay, we have a client engagement, and they've got offices in London and Tokyo and the US. And so I would just be working around the clock. In fact, often I would find myself sleeping on the floor in the office because in those days, there weren't even laptops. That's how long ago it was. And so to get access to your data, you actually had to stay in the office to be able to access your big computer. And that's not really a sustainable kind of thing, right?
No, it really isn't.
It's not very good for us, and it's not good for our work, and it's not good for the teams. And I liken that to the sprint mentality where you've got this deadline. Okay, I'm just going to, for a couple months, we're just going to really crank it out. And then what happens at the end? You kind of collapse and you backslide, right? You're just burnt out and it doesn't work. And so then we often graduate along our career to the idea of a marathon. So then I moved out to Silicon Valley, and the product cycles were different. It wasn't a couple months. It was like a yearly product launch at that point before the internet was really big. So it was a yearly product launch cycle. So you paced yourself a little bit more like a marathon, and you did do some more self-care. But at the end, it sort of turned into a sprint. And then you ended up again at the end being a lot burnt out and needing a fair amount of time to recover. And you didn't necessarily have the energy to then begin to grow and develop what you wanted to do professionally or personally. And so we've got both of the sprint and the marathon analogies are very goal oriented, like get to this point, reach your goal, and that's it. And there's a whole nother paradigm for looking at life, which is a journey mindset. And that's what Stanford research started to look into. They said, okay, well, we know that what happens when people have this goal or destination mindset, then they stop, they have to, and they backslide. And so there's not sustained growth. And what would make it different? So they decided to test something out. And what they did was they took a number of different research studies where people were in programs with specific goals, like a weight loss program or a fitness program, or even an executive training program. And at the end of the program, after people had done what they needed to do, they asked all of the participants to reflect on what had happened in the program. And they gave different prompts. Some people were asked to reflect on it as a journey, and some people were asked to reflect on it as a destination, and some people were given no prompts at all. And they wanted to see what happened in terms of people's learning and growth and the benefits. Did the benefits sustain? And then were their future actions in alignment with the goals that they wanted to continue their purpose and so on. And so the net result of that is that when the people who were invited to reflect on the program as a journey were able to continue their progress. So for example, if you have been in a fitness program and you met your goals, after the program ended, you continue to exercise and you continue to make choices that were in alignment with good health and fitness instead of slacking off. For example, like with diet programs, I'm sure many people can relate to it. You get on the diet, you hold to it, you gut it out, you meet your goals, you drop the weight, but then when it's done, after a while, you backslide. Mm-hmm. But in this case, the people who were just asked to reflect on it as if it were a journey didn't. They stayed on it. They continued to progress with their weight loss goals, and they continued to make decisions that were in alignment. So no cheating and binging on the chocolate afterwards. So that was a really interesting, finding that the Stanford folks had, which was, hey, if you reflect on your whatever your experiences were, and you look at it as a process instead of an event, instead of a goal, you will actually be able to grow.
Okay, so I did read that. A couple of things that I really appreciated about that research. One, I love research, and two, I actually really appreciated that the authors and the researchers looked at various kinds of growth-related activities, and I thought that was actually stellar, and that they were able to find that similar thread. So then, of course, we have to ask, for the purpose of this conversation, how does that relate to the strategy for working on purpose?
Right. So I think one of the main problems that people encounter with why they're not able to move forward with their purpose is that they're confusing purpose and goals.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yes.
I think that actually, well, I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I completely agree with you. People confuse purpose and goals all the time. They also confuse meaning and purpose. They're also not the same.
Right. And I think that purpose is a much bigger thing and a much higher thing than a goal. A purpose is something that, in my perspective, you can't actually ever achieve. You can just continue to work towards it. It's not something that you one and done with that purpose. And so it's got this other quality to it that's more like a North Star.
Yes.
So the North Star is big, it's bright, and wherever we're at, we can see the North Star and we can head towards it. And the exact route doesn't exactly matter as long as we continue to head towards that direction. And so it can illuminate and guide us in our actions and our decisions.
Right. And listeners and viewers, how you might now situate goals, since we said that they were not the same as purpose, is imagine, like I'm looking right now at a list of 8 goals that I have on my list to get done here in 2021, all of which are directed by and feed into the fulfillment of my purpose. So I can have like almost whatever, maybe unlimited number of goals that might support what it is for me to live my purpose and be an expression of my purpose, but they're not my purpose. That's how I would distinguish that.
Exactly. And I think what's kind of interesting is that the Eastern wisdom traditions, which I'm very interested in, really take this approach of purpose, which is linked to destiny and so on, as a birth to death kind of journey. So that's the language that they use, that it's a lifelong journey. It's not just episodic here and there. Let's just finish this goal. It really has this long quality. And when you step back and you look at purpose as this lifelong thing, then you really do. It changes your life in a different way.
Oh my gosh, Joyce, I love this. That's how I see it for me, right? I do have I am touched a little bit by more of the Eastern wisdom traditions, not entirely just the Western, just because of my travel and what I'm interested in. And I'll tell you, for that anthology of women, I found 25 women from across the globe to share their stories of how they discovered their purpose and are now persevering mightily to live it. And the way that I set up the questions, unbeknownst at the time, sort of invited them to look at it more as a journey. And so a lot of us told our story, the ongoing unfoldment of how it was to become. It didn't just make sense in a moment. It wasn't just revealed to us in a moment. Ta-da, here it is, this is what you're supposed to be doing. But over the course of your life, you could see how it unfolded. And when you look at it that way and you see that it's continuing to unfold, we're still on that journey. We're still on that path. And then it's exciting to see, well, where else is it going to go? Where else is it going to take me? It's already really good now.
That's so beautiful. What a wonderful experience for the folks who were there. And I'm sure it changed their lives.
Many of them who contributed said that the experience of writing their life stories was cathartic. And by the way, listeners and viewers, I am now launching the men's anthology. So now we've collected the 25 women. I'm out trolling the globe for men who have discovered their purpose and want to share their story in this next anthology. So please do contact me at elisecortez.com and let me know if you want to talk about it and be considered, because it's the next thing that I'm doing. It's so exciting. It's so fun. So say more about this Taoist view of destiny and purpose, and how did you learn about that? Where does it speak to you?
Yes, well, it's both. Like, it's Eastern, so it's Taoist and it's also Buddhist. There's similar traditions in some ways, not always. But this idea of, oh yes, this path that we trod throughout our life, and the important thing to do is to be able to see, are we on the path, or are we like just zigzagging away and losing momentum and being inefficient in the way that we go. So the idea is, how can we connect with that path? How do we know whether we're on it, whether we're deviating from it, and what happens when we, as we grow and evolve, the path will shift a little bit. And so I've been interested in these sorts of approaches to life for 40, 50 years. And it just is amazing to me that it provides such guidance and reassurance and this bigger sense of comfort around, I don't have to get every little detail right now. I'm looking at the big picture of the journey over life. And if I'm heading in the right direction, that's good.
It's fantastic. Oh, this is just a yummy conversation, Joyce. I'm so glad you agreed to join me. And let's grab our first break already. It goes so fast. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on the air with Joyce Tom, a speaker, executive coach, and catalyst for change in the fields of resilience, wellness, and conscious leadership. We've been talking about and distinguishing journey versus destination mindsets. After the break, we're going to get into tools for the journey. Stay with us. We'll be right back.